I am curious. I think there's probably a pretty good background story here as well. W- How did you connect virtual reality to the power of experiential learning?
So I consider myself a subject matter learner, not a subject matter expert, as well as an innovator.
I love that.
Um, I always tell my students, at every every semester, let's learn together, right? Because I believe that teachers, instructors, faculty, we are learning more than our students. When I face a class of 35 students, 40 students, I'm learning so much from all their perspectives, all their approaches, everything they know. I'm absorbing like a sponge. So back to your question, I love finding new ways to help my students learn. And one of the goals I have as an instructor, as I said earlier, is to make my students learn, right? Not to just stand in front of a class and speak for an hour and 15 or an hour and 50 minutes. That's not my goal. I want to make my lectures as memorable as possible. So students don't have to study much, right? Have you noticed how when you watch a great movie or documentary, you can then retell the story without having to read a script, right? So you watch your best movie and then you can, oh, what was it? What was the movie about? And you can tell the story, right? That's what I'm constantly pursuing every class, in every class. I want my students to be able to retell the story, in this case, my lecture, without having to resort to their notes or their books, right? And so I'm constantly, and for every lecture, brainstorming about the best way to tell the story in the most engaging way possible. There are, of course, some topics that no matter how engaging you make them, they're just so difficult to teach in a classroom setting, as they require asking students to imagine things. Warehousing and distribution is a key component of supply chain management. And for years, I have struggled teaching this topic. A key concepts such as cross-docking, perhaps you're not familiar, but those that, some people may be, requires asking students to imagine a warehousing environment. This is so challenging because, on average, 1 out of 35 students in my class have been to a distribution facility. So last year in the spring, the University of Maryland put out teaching innovation grants, great grants. I thought this was a great opportunity to bring some innovation into the classroom and reimagine the way my students learned. So I worked with a coworker who just retired, by the way, to write a proposal, the best proposal on the use of immersive technologies in the classroom, and the rest is history, right? We were awarded the grant. We collaborated with a developer to set up the VR experiences, and voila. My students now can learn warehousing and distribution from their dorms in the most experiential way. They learn from flow optimization to layout optimization to warehouse capacity to the newest technologies being used today in supply chain management in a distribution environment, such as robots, autonomous vehicles, etc. Everything from their dorms.
Wow. So there's so much to break down there. First of all, I'm completely going to take the term subject matter learner from you and use that in the future. I love that. I'll also add a comment that you gave I think you said 75% retention with experiential learning. I've heard, and I think you just verified it, something that's probably even more powerful than experiential learning is actually becoming a teacher and having to teach a topic. I've always heard that if you can teach it, you probably have gained a very high level of learning, mastery over a topic. You don't want to be up in front of students and not know your stuff. So if there's one thing that's better than experiential learning, it's actually being a teacher and being in front of the class. But I love the fact that you have this relationship, this partnership with your students to where you're on a journey together, where you're both you're all learners in the classroom, so that's really powerful.
Listen, to
Uh,
add to what you're saying, if I may interject, to add to what you're saying, one thing that I tell my students is this, flat out from the beginning of the class: hey, listen, guys, nobody knows everything, right? Nobody knows everything. So you're saying, have all this stuff. You just said something that triggers something in my mind. I tell my students this: I don't have all the answers. I don't have all the truths. With my experience and my knowledge, I could just find a way to answer any questions you may have, but I choose not to do that. So every once in a while, it happens once a semester. Some of you will come up with questions for which I don't have the answer. And I'm going to tell you, I don't have the answer for that, but I'll research it and I'll get back to you tomorrow. Because, I think to the extent that you're transparent with your students, and your students can see you as a normal person, like I'm a normal person, and I'm not a computer or anything, they trust you more. They know that I'm not going to tell them anything that is not research backed or based on my experience, my direct business experience. If I don't know the topic, I'll tell them, right at the moment, I'll research the topic and I'll come back with an answer.
that's very admirable of you. I mean, that takes, I know, a lot of effort and a lot of work. But it's, again, your students, I'm sure, appreciate that.